Hey everybody, Tag Life Done Free. Hey, I recorded building the picnic benches that many of you guys have been following, getting ready for our big community day. And I thought I would share with you guys how I built them. I thought I'd share the cost. I've got many, many requests that say, hey, why don't you build one for me or whatever it is. There's nothing complicated about it. It is really simple. It's just, putting construction material together and building something quality that should outlast me. And so, anyway, I thought I'd just kind of show you guys the entire process. I also share the cost, what it cost me to build each one of them at the end of the video. And so, I hope that you guys find it useful. It's funny, I don't do a lot of these videos of actually watching me build, but I thought this would be a good one and it would help some people out. Inside our community, we've had a lot of people say, hey, let's have a big community day and just build picnic benches, and the farms seem to like them, and so we may do that someday. But as of today, if you're interested in a cheap, easy picnic table, how to build it, and more importantly, when I say cheap and easy, probably should say inexpensive and easy, because they're a long ways from cheap. They're big, they're tough, you can put anything on them, they're not going to fall apart, they're going to last a very long time. But if you're interested in quality for not a lot of money, come on, check it out. Hey folks, hey, today I thought I would share a design plan for some very quick, easy picnic tables that we'll build out of construction lumber. And I'm building these for the front of the community building so that there's extra seating when Joel gets here. B has tasked me with creating 3. I've built 1.5, but I thought I'd actually take you through the process on the last one. So let me show what we're going to build. So here's the picnic table. As you can see, I have a table, but the benches I made separate. See? And I did this so that those benches would slide up underneath both sides in order to be able to be kind of out of the way so we don't have to trip on them. So this is what we're going to make in the end. I'll show you how I do it. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work on the top. So this is a table that has been built, but I don't have the top in. But I left it like this so I could show you guys how to do it. So the first thing to do is I'm going to make this cut here. So I'm going to cut basically this cut out of here. And what this allows me to do is to lay in the composite decking that I'm going to use for the top. And I like the composite decking because they can wipe it down and it won't deteriorate. So we're going to make this frame right here. Okay, so this is an 8-foot table. So I'm going to take 2 4x4s and I'm going to cut this cut in it right here. And then we'll cut the ends, we'll make those cuts, and then we'll put the rectangle together. So as you guys can see, this cut is 1.5 inches that way and 1 inch that way. Okay? So I'm gonna come over here to my table saw and see how this one is already set at 1.5 inches by 1 inch. And so this is one cut. Then I'll flip the board over and I'll do the opposite cut. Okay, so as you can see, here's my cut. Right, I ran it through one way. So then what I have to do is I have to cut this corner out. So I'm going to flip this board over and I'm going to make that other cut. So I mentioned before this was 1.5 inches, but now I need to change this. I need to go back to 1 inch. All right? And then I need to raise this blade because it was 1 inch. And I'd like it to be 1.5 inches. So I'm going to raise that up to there, and I'm ready for the other cut. So you can see I've made this other cut now, so that'll just come out of there. Okay. And so now, as you can see, this is ready to accept that top board. So as you can see, cut them at a 45, right, on both sides down there. And so now we got to run these pieces over here and on the other side. One really cool thing about building something over and over and over again is you have something to measure off of, right? So like, I don't remember the measurements, but that looks to me to be 31 3/8. So now I need to cut 2 of them at 31 3/8 and take this cut out of them right there, and then we can build the box. Okay, so you can see we cut these boards, we did the 45, we cut that seat out of there, we did the same thing on the other side. So now I've got to make the dado cuts for the legs. So you can see here, these are the dado cuts right here. See how this board sits down in here? Okay? Let me show you here on this other one. So these dado cuts, I'm going to make these right here. Okay, and that allows this cross member, which is what's going to support my leg. So I got to cut these in, these dado cuts right here. I got to cut 4 of them, 2 on each side of the long board of the top of my table. So we're going to cut these right here. So the measurement from the edge here to that line of the first cut of the dado cut is 9 inches. And then I'll cut out 3.5 inches for the dado cut. One important thing, not all saws have it, but this is a compound miter saw. See this little lip right here? So if I leave it out like that, it's going to take a full cut. If I push it in like that, I can use this adjustment right here to move this bolt in and out, which will stop my cut. So let me show you what that looks like. Okay. Well, B's here, so I can actually show you guys how to make these dado cuts. But typically, in like a shop, they use like 10 blades together, and they'll make it in one pass. But since I'm out on the farm, that's not how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'll show you guys how I do it. Ready? Here we go. See, this is what you're left with. So what I gotta do is pop them all out. Sit nice and flat on that, won't they? I don't know how many of you guys know this, but a chisel, if you move it like this, top up, it's gonna dig. If you do it like this, it'll kind of stay on the top. So what I'll do is I'll just clean this up a little bit. Because I don't want the big pieces in there. Okay, but you see how in this cut it's taller back here, and that's because of the curve of the blade. So now I've got to take this side and get it down to this height. Make sense? All right, here we go. So I've got to take that much out of there in order to make it flat. And do the other side. So what I do is I make my mark and then I just lift it up just a little bit so I can get it in 2 passes. Okay. If you guys remember, I told you we wanted a 1-inch bevel on the edge. So we'll move this to 45. All I gotta do is one more, the piece is complete. There you go. Easy peasy. Come, you guys, a simple chisel. And we just get it all nice and flat. And then the board will sit in there nicely. So I've got 4 of these to cut, 4 dado cuts to make on the 2 edges. And then I'll get back to you. So if you look, I showed you guys over here, right, this thing that stops my cut from getting too deep, right? So basically all I'm doing is going like this. Cut, 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 moving the board back just a little bit each time to take that cut out of there. Make sense? Okay, so As you can see, I've made these cuts, these dados, which would match this one, right? I like to build right on top of my other tables because I like to see things line up. The other thing is I'm actually going to build this table upside down so that all of my screws and everything are hidden and nothing's exposed. But anyway, so we've got these. So the next thing is we're actually going to cut this board right here. Let me show you. So if you look under here, this board right here is what we're going to cut next. We need 4 of these, right? It's identical to this bottom one. So you've got a 31 3/8, you've got a 45, a 1-inch 45 cut. I'm going to cut 3 dados, 1, 2, 3, and I've got to make this board times 4. Okay, so I got one of these boards cut, and again, there's 3 dado cuts. What's important to know is that, as you can see here, so first I came in 2 inches. The reason I came in 2 inches is because I want a 1-inch 45 on the end, which is right there. So I want this to come down at a 45, okay, like that. And then I don't want this to be too thin as to support the leg of my table. So I come in 2 inches, then I measure over 3.5, right? Same thing, come in 2 inches, measure over 3.5. This is just centered. I find the center, and I make my 3.5-inch cut. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to cut these 45s on both sides, and then I'll show you a completed board. Okay, so here's the completed board. So I got a 1-inch 45, 1 inch over to my cut, leg centered, 3.5 inches. Over here, 1 inch over for my cut, another 1 inch for my leg, and again, the cut. Now, as you guys can look down in this cut, see how some of this is smooth and some of this is still rough? I'm going to clean this up just a little bit with my chisel, but it's pretty good. It's not bad, especially for an outdoor picnic table, right? So what I've got to do is I've got to cut 4 of these, 1 down, 3 to go. Okay, so there's the 4 cuts. These are the tops and the bottoms. Here, let me show you. You see this leg right here? So I just cut this bottom board and this top board that lays under here. Okay, that's why I needed 4, right? Two for that side and 2 for this side. So now I've got to cut these 3. This one, and this one. But this one, the middle one, gets the same dado cut in here in order to support the legs. So I've got to build this one. I got to cut these. There's times 6, and then on 2 of them, put in a dado. Now that from the top down is 9 inches. I like to build in commons. Do you remember over here I did 9 inches? Right? Remember over here? This was 9 inches. This is 9 inches, and I like to do that stuff because it's easier to remember my measurements when you're trying to build stuff just kind of in production like this. So anyway, I'll get those cut. Okay. If you look up at there, that's so hard. Anyway, it's 26 inches. You know that 26 inches is actually kind of a bad measurement. I'll tell you why. Because 26 doesn't divide evenly, you know, at 8 feet, which the boards I'm using are 8 feet. Had I made that cut 23 3/4, 23 7/8, I'd have got 4 boards out of an 8-foot piece and said, now I'm only going to get 3. So this is something, if I could improve the design, I would have cut those legs down 2 inches, because again, that would have let me better use my material. Okay, so here are all of the parts to assemble this much of the table right here. Okay, and then we're gonna have to put some supports in here for the top, but we'll do that in a little bit. We're gonna get this table built first. So anyway, here's table number 3. Here's all the parts. So what's left is to build it. Hey, although I'm not there yet, I'm gonna build these benches too. And I know from building the first bench, like that bottom measurement's 15, that vertical one right there is 11 3/4. And so when I have scrap left over, instead of just throwing it on the floor for me to pick it up again, I'm cutting these parts along the way, knowing that I'm going to use them. Let me show you what I'm talking about. You know, so these came out of building the top of that table. These are 15s. This is an 11 3/4. So I've got enough to do one bench from the 15s and just one of the 11 3/4. But if you look at the bottom of my cut table, that's all my scrap right there, because I've used it all up. The biggest piece of scrap is that one right there. That right there is my biggest piece of waste. So if you're smart with your material, I think you get better bang for the buck. Okay, so as I mentioned, I'm going to build this upside down. So as you can see, these dado cuts are up first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to spend a little time cleaning them up. Then I'm going to get these corners squared up. I'm going to glue them and screw them. And then once I have the perimeter glued and screwed, we'll start actually building the inside. So that's what's next. Okay, so we got the perimeter all done, and now these things go in. Okay, right? They just sit just like that. So what I'll do is I'll put glue down in these dado cuts, and then I'll drive some screws back in. Again, one of the advantages to working the table upside down is all your screws are hidden when it's all said and done. Okay, so you can see my screws are hidden up underneath here, and then we're going to put these legs in here, right? So like, here's the one at the dado cut, so it goes in the middle. Hard to do this with one hand. Okay, so again, so I had to set these 3 legs, and again, don't forget this one here has the dado cut out of it for the cross support. But again, as I mentioned, if you look real close, guys, you can see my screws, right? By doing it this way, they're all up underneath the table, right? You're not gonna be able to see any of them. So I pin them screw, 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 and then obviously glue. So one more to do. Okay, so these 3 are in. These 3 are in. So what comes next is I got to get this centerpiece ran over to here, and then I got to get the feet on. If you look at this table over here, remember we cut those 31 3/8 boards earlier, right here, these boards. So I'm going to get them up and put on there. Okay, so the rough part of the table is assembled. Now I need to flip it over and work it from the other side. Okay, so here's the rough table, right? Finished table and rough table. So now what we got to do is we got to put some supports in here in order to support the tops that we will lay down in there. So we'll do that next. Okay, so I added these boards, 1, 2, 3, and I added them at the 2 foot, 4 foot, and 6 foot mark. And this is going to support the composite decking that we're going to put in here as a tabletop, which we'll do next. Well guys, that's a wrap on this tabletop, right? So what I used was this stuff right here. This is composite decking. It's a little bit expensive. Like each one of these boards, 8 feet long, is about $17. But what's really cool about it is it makes this surface washable, cleanable. It's not going to rot. It's going to be there forever. And so got that tabletop done. This table done with benches. And this table I'll do next. I'll put the cross members in, and I'll put the top in, and then from there, time to get on to building benches. Okay, so the bench works exactly the same as you can see as the tables. The only difference is this cross member has 2 versus if you look at the leg of the table, there's 3, right? Because the table's wider. So like you see the bench over there, you get up close here. So if you look under here, see there's 2. The distance here is 15 inches. The distance in length is 66 inches. Okay, so the benches work just like the tables, obviously. So I've cut these to length. These are 66 inches long, which is the length of the table. So I have to cut that groove out of there, right, that I showed you guys on the table, and then cut the dados in the bottom, cut the angles, and make the same rectangle that we did in the table, just in a lot smaller. And I'll show you what I mean. So these are the bases, right? They're 15 inches. And so what I have to do is I have to come in here. If you look, I measured over 1.5 inches because I want a 1 inch bevel to it, which I did on the other ones. And I'll show you again, 1/2 inch, and then to begin my cut. And so I did it the same way. So basically what I have to do is I have to cut out a dado cut, right? Basically, and get all this material out of here, if that makes sense. So I'm going to use a compound miter saw. And I'm doing it just like I did the other ones. So sorry guys, it's getting dark. So this is what the bottom looks like, right? So it's 15 inches across, right? These are 3 5/8 pockets for a 3.5 inch board. I measure over 1 inch, right, which gives me this bevel cut, and then I leave a 1/2 inch here just so it has something to support when I put this pole in. And I do the exact same thing. I measure the same from the other side. Then I make this the dado cut, right? Right here. Sorry guys, it is just getting dark. Make this dado cut, in order to set my legs in. So again, the difference between the table and this is there's 2 versus 3, and obviously it's a lot smaller. The pieces are a lot easier to deal with. So you can see, right, we cut the screw out. This is 1.5 inches and 1 inch. So I just set my table saw, right, at 1.5 inch. What's down here? I can't see it. Anyway, to set the dimension there, set the height of the blade. This moves back and forth, easy peasy. So now what I have to do is I have to come in here and cut these at 45-degree angles, right? So that they match up and make the box. So, see, I cut the 45s. And I actually have this board upside down, right? This would be the top because that board lays in here. But anyway, if you look, try to get it out of the light here. There we go. So see my marks? That's for that dado cut, right? Where that cross piece will put in for the legs. Okay, so the measurement is from here, from the long point. This is the long point of the 45. So you could measure short point or long point, but long point to my first mark is 9 inches. To my second mark is 12 5/8. And then I'm going to take that piece out of there so that I can lay that cross member down in there. Hope that makes sense. So as you see, it's just a rectangle, right? Just like the tabletops. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put the legs in. Then we're going to put the legs in there, right? And get them glued and screwed in. Put the legs up, put the bottoms on, and then this one will be a wrap. Okay, so once we get these cross members put in, right? Then what happens is, see these dado cuts, these just slide right in there. And then what I'll do is I'll put screws back in, kind of at a toenail, back in these angles. So I'll put 4 per leg. Also putting some glue in there, and this is good because it holds it good and tight, right? So I'm gonna take these out, put some glue in, put some screws in, and that'll be that. So if you look, see, I put these in at an angle, kind of like a toenail, right? And we'll just screw those legs. Now those legs are in there really hard, so they're glued and screwed, and better yet, all of the screw heads are hidden because they'll all be on the bottom. Well, first of all, welcome, B. 1.5, 5 1/8. 1.5, 5 1/8.
It was 1 minute.
Kills your thumbs.
Shake the whole table.
Yep. Done.
You're gonna get your thumb stuck in that.
Hope not. Especially because I've only got 3 left to go. Well, hey everybody, I hope you enjoyed the Easy Picnic Tables. I hope somebody finds it useful. I thought I'd share the costs with you real quick. So in each set of picnic tables, so meaning the picnic table and the benches, I use 10.5 4x4s, 1 2x4, both 8 feet long, and I used 7 sticks of composite decking, also 8 feet long. If you look at just the table itself, it has 7 4x4s, 1 2x4, and 5 pieces of composite decking for a total of $187.44 purchased at Home Depot. If you look at the benches, they require 3.5 4x4s, no 2x4s, and 2 pieces of composite decking for a total of about $81. So that's going to put us at a grand total of, so that's going to give us the grand total of about $350 tax included for everything I put in. Now, when I say everything, I say that a little bit loosely, because what I did not sit down is figure out is how many, screws were put in at what cost, because I buy screws in 25-pound buckets, so maybe another $2 here and there, a little bit of glue, but that stuff to me is fairly insignificant. But anyway, pretty inexpensive, I think. I don't think you could buy it for that anywhere, and really helped us out on our community day, gave us a lot more seating. So anyway, hope you enjoyed it. I hope you find it useful. Tag out.